Well, thank you very much. I'm sure we are picking a lot of insights from the messages that are being shared. One of the things which has been negatively impacted with the onset of all these disruptions that have happened is the culture of the organization. And it would be good also to understand from Daniel first, how has the culture been impacted as a result of these disruptions?
So massively. I mean, in the last year, we've employed people who've worked for 8 months and haven't met other people in the company. And we are a small company, just 85 people. But because of working from home, there are people who have been home for the whole of this year, have never come into the office. How do you onboard talent that you are not going to see? How do you instill culture in people who might never meet? How do you gauge or what criteria do you use to assess engagement in people you are not seeing? Sometimes looking into the person's eye can tell you what he's thinking, if we are engaged or disengaged. He might be home doing his work, but how engaged are they? So I think in the last 18 months, work has changed so significantly, but the bigger fear is the change yet to come. Because we've had to move almost 10 years. And we would have gotten here anyway, but it would have taken us 6, 7, maybe 10 years to get here. And we've jumped a whole 5 years, especially in Ghana or in this side of the world, where we still wanted to see everybody in the office every day. You know, we've jumped many years, so that the next series of changes will come quick and they will come fast. The HR quickly needs to understand that their work has changed. The days when HR walked around and checked who is in a blue skirt and yellow top are gone. Or whose skirt is above their knee, you know, or who's wearing a very tight trousers. Those days are gone, they won't come back. HR now is more on strategy, anticipating the future, and how you can make sure the workforce are ready for the future.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Henry, if you are there, I think we'll need to get your views on still the subject of culture. So, among several HR colleagues, there's the understanding that culture emanates from the top. It would be good to hear your perspective, Henry. How can HR influence culture in these disruptive times, now and even beyond, by 2030, 2040?
Ken?
Yes, Henry?
Can HR influence culture?
Yes.
Now, I think Dan has made quite a HR has moved from being what used to be called a support function to front of strategy, and Dan made that point. So the definition of the culture of the workplace is going to totally change in terms of how the workplace feels. Is going to be how we create in a combined virtual and real world interactive tool workplace is like. And as Dan said, this workplace is not going to be experienced with people walking around and seeing each other all the time. We're actually in an age workforce that we are employing may never sit in one place. I mean, yesterday or a couple of days ago, I saw that in the UK there were over 1 million job vacancies. That is. The workers are all over the world. Why are there job vacancies? How many of these job vacancies can actually be done virtually by someone sitting somewhere else? And why are they vacancies? That was my first question. Of course, HR is going to be important in first of all, knowing what that culture of a combined in-person workforce and a like. Honestly, I don't know how easy that is going to be to create that culture. But surely, these are the strategic things that HR need to really get on top of and be at leadership of organizations, create that future. Of course, it is highly possible that people can join an organization without seeing anybody for months. Do they get a sense of what the culture of the organization, what the values of the organization is, how friendly people are, how helpful people can be, how easy is it to make decisions? Which can be maintained as foundational. And then we then need to think about the future in a more strategic way around that. And I think HR has out of this conversation.
Hello, Henry, are you done? It doesn't appear that technology is being friendly with us. But let's still make progress. I think I would want to ask Awo this time around. What I am looking at is the fact that COVID came, it was unknown. It was virtually, an incident that most organizations were unprepared for. And so, like Henry mentioned, a lot of organizations fizzled out. How can the organization be prepared for the unknown? Henry mentioned VUCA, and it would be good to hear from an HR professional how an organization can also be prepared for the unknown.
So I think we go back to what Daniel has said, that if we come with learning agility, if we're agile, and if we are adaptive leaders, then we have the fundamental traits for anything to happen, and we will quickly think through what needs to take place. We did it with COVID. I mean, on March 13th, 2020, I remember that day, we sent everybody home. And if you're anything like me, I thought we'd be back within a month. It's now 18 months and we're still at home. And working from home quickly changed to working remotely. And now what we need to think about is, should we be agnostic when it comes to work location? Does it matter where people sit? And that raises all kinds of issues. Like, okay, so do we pay for fuel? Do we do this? Do we do that? Some of our benefits will have to change to adapt to agnostic work locations. Flexible work has taken a new meaning. I'll be honest with you. Prior to COVID, I was not a fan of flexible work schedules. Now I have no choice. We now have to have flexible work schedules because we have people working flexibly from different locations. So I think the fundamental skills are skills like being adaptive, being thoughtful, critical thinking. Those are the key things. Your the HR stuff you learned in school would be useful in terms of what you do, but the how becomes much more important in an environment of change. You don't have to have the answers for what's coming up. It's unknown, but you have to have a way you handle things that come up, how you maybe quickly get input from other companies in the industry or companies not in the industry, how you quickly assess and synthesize the information. And we are well positioned today as business partners to our leaders, because culture comes from leadership, right? It's, culture on one side and leadership on the other. As business partners, we are arm in arm with our leaders. So we have a sense of where they're going, what the direction is going to be. And we can actually be forward thinking to get that information and to start to synthesize it in a way that comes out with new policies or new guidelines. There's some companies like Netflix that actually don't have policies. They expect people to do the things that are right. Because policies today are not going to stand the test of time because things are moving that fast. Frankly, I'm a little old-fashioned. I still think we need policies and guidelines to guide people, especially in larger companies. But we have to start thinking about how do we keep up? And we have to be in the front of it. So I think that's kind of what I see in terms of HR partnering with leaders to make sure that we can help them move the organizations where they need to go.
All right, thank you very much, Awo. That was very insightful. During Henry's message, there was also one thing that came up which I captured. He mentioned the evolution of the employee. And as part of the evolution of the employee, the workplaces currently are characterized by multi-generational workforce. And this also calls for, various management skills in managing all these colleagues that we have. How do we manage, what is the impact, and Daniel, this is to you, what is the impact of such multi-generational workforce on the workplace? Because ideally in the past, it had been quite easy having, a kind of straitjacket kind of employees within the system. But this time it is different. It's multi-dimensional, multi-generational. What is the impact of this on the workplace? And how is it going to be in the next 10 years down the line?
So it's difficult managing a team with all the different generations in there. People belonging to our generation look up for different things. The millennials are looking for different things. So it's currently difficult. You can't have a one rule fits all policy. Unfortunately, a lot of us as leaders, that's what we do. You can't dress this way. You can't closer here. You can't go home at this time. I think what we need to do is to respect the fact that there are different generations who expect to be treated or to be treated differently. In the future, it will be easier. Research shows that in the next 10 years, about 70% of all workers will be millennials. And then the gig workers who will come in and go in as their passion instructs them, So then it would be a bit easier to manage because they believe in very simple things. Emphasis on technology, honest leadership, values and passion driven as opposed to salary. Well, I don't know how that works. But, so they believe in different things a bit from what we do. They don't do too well in rule-based environments. We need to look at our performance management systems when it comes to the millennials. So the world of work will change in the next 10 years, and it will change radically. Don't forget, in the next 10 years, we are going to have people working for you, males who identify as females, females who identify as children, children who identify as all sorts of things. So I don't know how you would manage them, but I'm sure that is why you are professionals and HR people. You think of a way, but the thinking and the mindset has to change. And for me, I think we need to profile what it takes to keep this new type of workforce engaged. Trust for them is important. I left out trust. It's becoming a bigger deal every day. Trust among colleagues, among superiors, among subordinates. So let's as professionals, let's profile exactly what the next generation wants, and let's set cultures that would speak to those values. Other than that, we would not be able to manage them. And it's going to be more difficult, going back to the points I made earlier. This is a generation we are still trying to understand. How do you manage them when you are not seeing them? So, your work as HR practitioners is going to get extremely difficult and technical. And those who will win, as I've said earlier, are those who anticipate what is coming and try and mitigate the challenges they foresee.
All right, thank you very much, Daniel. And I think we'll pause at this point to hear from you. So it's time now for the open forum. It would be good to hear your thoughts, your questions, your comments. And for our colleagues who are also online, if you can send your questions through, we will hear them.
Yes,
So the floor is now open.
So we have a contribution from Madam Nana Pokwa Apafran. She's the Director of Operations at Nyaho Medical Center, previously HR Director. And she says, on the question of how HR leads on VUCA, I think we need to be less focused on the what and more focused on the how of human behavior. A lot was said about the future of work relying on judgment, critical thinking, agility, etc. These are traits or behaviors that robots cannot replicate and makes the human contribution more relevant and value added. HR should partner with academia to grow those skill sets and begin creating now a future resource pool that can quickly pivot in the face of the next COVID or global disaster. Mr. Baye was not able to join us, but I think Madam Ivy is online. I don't know if she has access to speak. Let's give technology another chance to you see, we're trying our best. Mr. Baye said in his keynote address that technology is a trend that will not go away, so we are really doing our very best to incorporate it, but just sometimes. Madam Ivy, can you hear me? Hello? Okay. I don't think she can hear me. Okay, so if there are any comments from the room while we try to get technology on our side. Sincere apologies. Mr. Baye sent his apologies. There's, like he said in before he spoke, there's been a lot of technological issues. Maybe Vodafone could go to the island of Jersey to assist. They could explore that option next time. If anybody has any contributions or questions, we have microphones available. No contributions? No questions? Okay, Dr. Triba.